Hello and welcome to episode number 128 of Weekly in Review. My name is Sean, and on this week's show we're going to finish up our Quantic Dream, or probably our Quantic Nightmare. Then we're going to have a limited edition sweet treat to celebrate that we are done with our Quantic Nightmare. We'll also look forward to this week's new releases and the streams happening over on twitch.tv/SeanOsaurusRex. So here we are. 4 weeks, technically 5, 4 episodes, 4 games, and we have finally reached the final game in the Quantic Dream, Quantic Nightmare retrospective, which, boy, this was a bad idea that just did not pan out. It wasn't a bad idea, it just didn't pan out super well. Started poorly with Indigo Prophecy, got really good with that one game that I liked a lot, Heavy Rain, that's what it's called. Then it just crashed to the earth with Beyond Two Souls. That game sucks. And now we've arrived at Detroit Become Human, the final game in this 4-game set. And this game is weird because there are elements of it that I really enjoy, but it slips and falls in the latter half of the game and kind of undoes and ruins itself. Not even kind of, it undoes and ruins itself towards the end of the game, to the point where I sat there and I was like, I don't really want to finish this. This basically breaks down into 3 separate segments. It's the 2 days that I played and then kind of the aftermath of everything. The first day I played, I was really into it. I enjoyed at least 2/3 of what it was. If you go back and watch the video, the very first scene, I'm like very in on it, because this game actually puts its best foot forward. It gives you its most interesting character, Connor, and it gives you its most interesting gameplay mechanic, investigative detective stuff. This first chapter does a lot to set up the world and the story of the game. Basically, androids are a normal thing, everybody has them, but some are becoming deviant and breaking their protocol, and they're becoming sentient beings making their own decisions, and they're becoming uncontrollable. So it's up to Connor to figure out exactly what's happening. This first area, mostly a tutorial area and story setup area, and I thought it worked really well. It does a really great job of setting things up and making things intriguing and interesting. And honestly, if this game was just an 8-hour like detective game, I think I would like it a whole lot more. I really like a game like LA Noire that, even for all its flaws and weird story things and its god awful ending, fuck, that ending is bad, I like the aspect of a detective sort of thing, a big mystery trying to get down to the bottom of it, and that's where this game starts. It has some cool new UI features. It plasters the objectives that you need to take care of on the wall. You can hold L2, I believe it is, and using like Android stuff, you can see what your current objective is, and if there is like maybe something that you haven't found, it'll say like ... Either that's the next step in the process, or sometimes it's something you can find in the environment itself to progress the story, or to progress a separate part of the story that may or may not come up later in the game. Connor's current objective is to figure out what the hell is going on. You walk in as the police are pulling a screaming lady out, and you're kind of just like, what the heck is happening? And this is where you get the tutorialization of what's going on. Using super cool Android tech, you get to like push L2 and it like cuts everything down, and you can look for clues, and you can take the crime scene and you can rewind and fast forward things and enhance stuff and push yourself through this crime area. I feel like I'm not explaining it very well, but it has cool Android tech, and it allows you to be a super sweet detective, and it's awesome, and I really liked it. Using your cool Android tech, you move around the area deciphering clues. You can like rewind and fast forward through a timeline, and it like brings up like a little skeletal structure of a human. If there's like a blood splatter or something, you can see kind of where they went or where they're coming from. It's really neat. I love messing around with it back and forth, moving the camera around to find something that you didn't initially see. It's really awesome, and I liked it a whole lot. We also get kind of the Quantic Dream touch of the QuickTime events, which are done much better in this game. It actually tells you on the screen which direction you need to move the controller, instead of taking the character's body and hoping that you'll figure it out. That is a great improvement. Some of the movements were a little more complex than I was anticipating. Usually it's just like straight right or straight left. Sometimes you have to like pull down and move it around in a very quick and timely fashion, or you'll get hit or whatever. But it's a lot more intuitive and a lot more enjoyable, and I wasn't nearly as frustrated with some of the QuickTime events. Like, I felt like I knew I missed them. Like, sometimes like a square would pop up and I would hit circle and be like, that I totally goofed that up, instead of trying to read something that wasn't super clear. We get the dialogue trees, and the dialogue options were kind of either introduced or, in my case, reintroduced to these to these gameplay elements from the previous games. And I think it's just done super well. The intro is really interesting, and it's pretty tense as well, because you don't really know exactly what's going on. You don't know the rules of the world necessarily, but it's still intriguing and engaging. And I just I just wish it was this, because the game takes a tumble later on. So far so good. We're off to a good start. It moves over to a very brief sequence, which is kind of weird because this game is divided into 32 chapters. And the first day I played for about 4 hours, and I got through 16 of these 32 chapters, and I thought, I'm making great time. This is awesome. Should run to like the 8, maybe 9 hour mark total. But the back half chapters, the final 16 chapters, take way longer. I think they're like 6 to 7 hours total. And I played on the second day, I played 9 chapters or so, and it took like 3 hours. And even looking at like a full length gameplay, it was still like 3 hours more. And it was really odd because some of the chapters are kind of lengthy. I probably spent like 15 or 20 minutes maybe in that opening chapter with Connor, and then it moved over to our second character, Kara, and that chapter is super short. It's like 5 minutes. It's mostly cinematic where you sit there and observe this gentleman coming in to get their android back, who has needed to be replaced and her memory wiped, and it's just kind of weird. It's a super short chapter. After the kind of weird interstitial chapter with Kara that doesn't have any gameplay really, you switch over to Marcus. And Marcus is a character that I never really enjoyed, and his arc is the worst in the game, and really kind of what set in motion me not liking or caring about this game. I don't know if I don't like it or if I just don't care. We are introduced to Marcus, and he is in a park, and he needs to go and get paint for someone. And you walk through the park, and you like cross the street, and there's like some commotion going on in the general area. There's like a preacher who's standing there yelling about how androids shouldn't be here. Like, okay, that's kind of weird. I think I see where you're going with this, but all right. Whatever, you go in, you get the paint, you leave, and then in probably my favorite touch in this game, you have to go wait for a bus, because Lord knows I love buses. And you actually have to like walk to the stop. I thought it was actually kind of funny in the gameplay. I was like, oh shoot, there's the bus, and I'm like trying to hustle, but it wasn't really working because there's no sprint button. But you're like, maybe that's not the one you have. You have to go to a different stop. It doesn't really matter. But on your way to the bus stop, your attention is caught by some commotion. Much like the preacher that I just referenced, it kind of grabs your attention where you're just kind of walking in a straight line, and all of a sudden it's like someone's making a noise, and you're like, oh, what is that? Maybe it's kind of interesting. And this is where the game makes its first misstep. It becomes very clear that it wants to try to tackle racism, which is super weird. And in case the speech from the protesters, which is what caught my eye on the way to the bus stop, in case the speech of the protesters of like, they're taking all our jobs wasn't clear enough, when you get on the bus, you stand in the back of the bus in the androids only section. And dear God, ham, meat, fist, meat, face, because Jesus, is it just so bad. And it sets Marcus's story up in such a bland, boring, been done before more interestingly in any type of media sort of way, that I immediately wasn't engaged with it, because it was just eye-rollingly, look at this that we're doing and we think we're important, but we're not saying anything. I almost forgot to mention at the end of the chapters, of the first Connor and the first Marcus chapter. I don't believe there was one for the Kara interstitial chapter. There is a really cool feature that they do where they show you the pathing of the pathing and the options that you had. So it starts in one spot, or maybe sometimes a different spot, depending on how things happened in a previous chapter. You can start in different spots, and it'll show you the choices that you made and the decisions you made and how that kind of branched into the ultimate end to your chapter. And sometimes there's like 3 or 4 endings. Sometimes they're a little more linear, and it's only like a couple of dialogue choices that really make any sort of difference. And even then, it still mostly just pushes them back to that one specific point that they're trying to make, or point they're trying to get to in the story. But I really liked that. I liked looking at it and just being like, some of the chapters are kind of cool because they have so many different branching paths. And I looked at it and I was like, that would be kind of interesting to look at and see, how do you get here from this particular point? I didn't find this specific location in this chapter to even push things down to these bottom 2 options. It's cool. I like the idea of it. It's really neat to look at. You can look at the statistics of players around the world, or even just your friends list, and it's really neat. But after the Marcus chapter, you go back with Kara, and you are back at her residence, having been fully repaired. Her memory gets wiped, which is a point that they made in the little interstitial chapter where you're just standing there in a first-person view looking around in this like Android shop and come in and get yours today sort of thing. Turns out that the dad of the family is a really big piece of shit, and one of the things that has become weirdly commonplace in David Cage games and Quantic Dream games is child abuse, and that rears its ugly head in this game as well, because the father of the family is super hot-headed and clearly like is abusive, and just starts yelling at the daughter for like literally no reason. You like walk in the door, and your job as an android, you're supposed to like clean up, and you have like a list of tasks that you need to do. You need to like check the bottom floor and then talk to the daughter and help her with her homework and do a bath and whatever. And you're supposed to like go out in the backyard and whatever, just clean up. There is a really cool little thing that happens in this. If you stand in the way of the asshole dad on the couch and the television playing hockey, he actually yells at you. And I didn't think that was going to work, because I was like, oh, I'll just stand here. And I had no anticipation or expectation that it was actually going to like cause any sort of anything to happen. And all of a sudden he starts yelling, and then the game actually like blocks you from going back. And I thought that was a nice little touch. In this chapter as well, you actually have a couple of opportunities to talk to the child as Kara and like try and comfort them and make them feel better. You then go upstairs, you clean up the daughter's room, and clean up the dad's room, and that's kind of where the game leaves us, and it rotates back to a different character. I can't remember who. I think it goes back to Marcus, and you see him on the other side of his paint delivery, and he interacts with the person that he works with and all this garbage, and it's just not all that interesting. I think you have to wake him up and like make him breakfast or something like that. But I don't remember, because I was never really interested in Marcus or his story ever. I just thought he was a bland, boring character, and I thought that the story that it was trying to tell was really bad. But so far, I'm invested in at least 2/3 of it. I don't necessarily like the direction of the Kara thing, but it's about to get interesting in another chapter when things go really south with the dad, and Kara becomes a deviant and actually breaks from her programming to rescue the child and runs away. Meanwhile, with Connor, we get introduced to his asshole partner, who is terrible and just awful from the get-go, and we have no reason to think he is anything other than terrible and an asshole. And he's just really annoying and dull. But we do get the cool gameplay stuff. We get to solve another crime. It's really well done. I really liked the way that stuff worked. I thought it was fun and engaging in a way that the rest of the game isn't. And so you rotate between these characters, and you watch these stories kind of continue their paths in their way. And after the first day, I was feeling pretty okay with it. After the escape sequence with Kara and the daughter, you go and you have to like try and find a place to stay the night, and you have all kinds of different options. This is one of the better examples of like you have 4 or 5 different places you can stay for the night, and you have all these different choices that you can make, and they can all lead to these different outcomes. I thought it was interesting. I liked where it was going. I liked, having the android, having Kara come in and go like, okay, I'm going to help, and I'm going to try and help you get a better life and have a better life, and I will be your mom, and I'll take care of you and all this stuff. I liked that story and the way it was working, but it starts to get bogged down, and this is where day 2 comes into play. Day 2 really drove home that I just don't care about any of these characters in the game, and it starts to introduce a lot of very generic plot points. Starting with Connor, his partner becomes more and more of an asshole somehow, and it becomes really evident that something happened in his past that cost him a loved one, and it starts to really point in the direction of there was like an android there or something, and maybe the android was supposed to save them but didn't, or elected not to, or whatever. And I just kind of rolled my eyes like, of course you lost a loved one. You hate androids because you lost a loved one. Great, fantastic. That sucks. That's dumb. Like, your character was never great to begin with, but then you go down this path and it's just ugh. Marcus' story gets more and more ham-fisted and less interesting the longer it goes on. I was never engaged with him at the start, and it just barrels down this path so willingly of just being so generic and boring and having nothing to say, and I didn't like it. The worst part is that Kara's story actually starts to crumble in the final chapter that I ended up playing, where it very clearly becomes a story about like immigrants, because she is trying to take this other android that they run into, and the daughter trying to take them across the border into Canada, where their laws against androids are far more lax or relaxed or whatever. And I was kind of just like, oh, like that sucks. I'm sure it was there from the beginning, but I like the idea of running away from something, like running away and trying to find a better life somewhere else, without that sort of subtext. And I guess it doesn't really count as subtext because subtext implies that there is some level of subtlety to it. And if there's one thing that David Cage can't write, it's subtlety. Everything is just hammered over your head. It's ham-fisted and it sucks. And it's not even good ham. It's not like a brown sugar ham or anything, like a smoked or glazed ham. It's just like a nasty, wet piece of meat that slaps across your face because you're like, cool, man, like, great. I don't know. It struggles for a couple of reasons. It struggles because the stuff isn't interesting, and even the new elements they introduce into it aren't interesting. And this is like part 3 of the review. Is I think that part of the issue is that there isn't a central character or a central goal. Like you're doing 3 different things at once, and if none of them are compelling, you don't really have much of a reason to continue playing. I don't really care why the androids are deviants. I thought that would be kind of interesting, but I just don't really give a crap because it kind of gets sidelined with the Connor's partner's garbage past, and I don't care. He's a hard drinking, hard boiled detective. I'm like, oh, shut up. Like, this has been done a bajillion times. Let's move away from it. I never cared about Marcus's stuff. It's super slow. It's really bad. The missions aren't interesting, and it's just dull. And then the Kara stuff just kind of slides into this very generic meh. Though I will say, the final mission that I did play with Kara, you have to keep police suspicion down, and I thought that was genuinely tense because it pops up on your little thing that you have like 3 things that you need to hide or 4 things that you need to hide. And I was sitting there and I was like trying to figure out, I was like, where is this 4th thing? I found the 1st and the 2nd like pretty easily, and then I just kind of happened to walk by the 3rd. And I was sitting there, I was like, there's 4. How are there 4? I was here, and I was here. And I just kind of happened to walk by this one. Happened to walk by like 2 of them, but I just happened to walk by, and it's like hide evidence. I'm like, oh, thank God. And it was like genuinely good, because if you can hide everything, then the officer won't ask questions, which means that one of the characters who's a little bit nervous won't say something that would raise a suspicion. I liked the way it worked. There are a couple of like really nice moments in here, but it's like broken by this overarching garbage that just doesn't work. There's a really cool scene where like you're riding a carousel, and it's like just the daughters on this carousel, and I love the way it's lit, and it's in this like snowy, dark, broken down like theme park sort of thing, and it's just this like really beautiful juxtaposition that I enjoy. I like the brightness of the lights, like contrasted against all this other stuff. I thought just looked really cool, and I liked that moment for them. It's just that so much of the dialogue and the other stuff around it isn't great, and it's so like meh and not great and outright bad in some spots that I just didn't care. I didn't care, and I was trying to force myself. I like even delayed the review a little bit. I was like, oh, I'll just flip this around. I'll try and get this done on a Monday, make sure the weekend review's done for last week. Took some time off of streaming, did all that stuff, and like was gonna come back and even do this like the night that I was recording this, and go like, okay, there's 3 hours of this game left. There's 6 chapters somewhere in there, and I just couldn't do it because I just didn't care. It's distracting, and it's loosey goosey, and it just doesn't do anything to pull me forward to the next chapter. I don't know. It's a weird game because there's elements of it that I like. I like the way like some of the UI design is done. I like Connor as a character. I think he's great. Kara's cool, and I like her partner, whose name I'm blanking on. I like the kind of like family dynamic that they have there. Marcus never got off to a great start, which is fine, whatever. It gets too bogged down in a bunch of malarkey that doesn't work. And unfortunately, it just left me at this spot where I was like, I'm not going to finish this game. I don't have anything necessarily like out and out against it, but I also don't like it enough to continue, which is odd because I finished Beyond Two Souls, a game that I absolutely loathe. But this one, I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna walk away. There's like 7 chapters left. Maybe I'll get to it on some day where I'm like, I have 3 hours. I'll just finish this up. I probably won't though, because there's other stuff that I want to do. I don't know. Detroit Become Human is a weird game that starts on solid footing and just slips down this like icy slope into mediocrity and malarkey and garbage and ham-fisted bullshit. So now that we finished that, I guess it's time to rank them. Number 1, Heavy Rain, and who cares about the rest? Number 2 would honestly probably be Detroit. It's not nearly as bad or annoying as something like Indigo Prophecy, and it certainly isn't as bad as Beyond Two Souls. But it isn't, like, the gap between 1 and 2 is very large in this list. Then 3, I'd honestly probably put Indigo Prophecy, because I can't imagine that game gets much worse than, I can't imagine that game gets worse to the point of being worse than Beyond Two Souls. And far, far down that list is Beyond Two Souls. This did not work out. But now that we're done with our Quantic Nightmare, we can treat ourselves to a sweet treat. And today's sweet treat is, I have it right here in front of me, limited edition apple pie. I keep wanting to say apple cinnamon, but they're apple pie. Apple pie Kit Kats. I want to say apple cinnamon because I think that apple pie is more of a fall treat sort of thing. There's something about like picking apples in the fall that leads to apple pie, that leads to general happiness for Sean, because I like things that are apple flavor. And I also love Kit Kats. So this is a hopeful marriage made in heaven. I don't know exactly where these were gotten. These were given to me by my dad. He came up to my desk and was like, hey, here you go. Got some Kit Kat apple pie Kit Kats for you. And I said, wow, thank you so very much. So here we go. Let's open them. They have this very nice yellow packaging. I should point out really quickly, they are crisp wafers in apple pie flavored white cream, naturally and artificially flavored. I didn't have to read that last part, but I just wanted to point out that they were white chocolate, which kind of a bummer. I personally like chocolate, but that's okay, because it's like you put the vanilla ice cream on. I mean, I don't, because I'm not an insane person that mixes food together. No. But I can imagine it's like, oh, we're putting the ice cream on top of the pie. There you go. All right. Ooh, that is appley. That is appley. We are off to a good start here. Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. Oh, yeah. These are terrific. I really like them. The apple really cuts through, which is kind of nice, because sometimes apple can be kind of a light flavor, and sometimes apple flavored things just don't get enough of it, and it gets lost in the shuffle. This feels like it has a very clear and defined apple flavor to it, and that is fantastic. These are really good. I want to finish this so I can just eat the rest of this bar, which is a good sign, because so many times on this show I open something, eat like a bite or a quarter of it, and then it just kind of sits in front of me. But this will be gone by the time I edit this video. I'm not 100% sure where you would find these, but if you like Kit Kats, if you like apple pie, if you like one of those two, this is absolutely worth a shot. This is so good. Finally, on this week's show, we'll take a look at this week's new releases. Still nothing in theaters, but Inmate #1, the story of Danny Trejo, is out on demand. I like Danny Trejo a lot. Shout out to Machete and Machete Kills. Hopefully we'll get to see him kill in space. But I kind of doubt it. I feel like it would have already happened by now. But that's beside the point. This is a story about his rise to being an action star, and I saw a trailer, it looked pretty cool, and I liked Danny Trejo, so I'm in on that one. Nothing of note on Blu-ray, and there's only one game called Superliminal, which is a puzzle game that is based on like optical illusions and changing the size of various objects to help you solve these puzzles. It looked really cool. I'm interested in checking it out. Puzzle games are kind of hit or miss, because sometimes I just feel really dumb, and I don't feel like I do a great job at like absorbing all the information and trying to figure it out, and sometimes I get frustrated because I bang on my head against the wall, and I just feel like I'm dumb, and then I'm like, gosh, you're dumb, and then I'm like, stop feeling like you're dumb, but then I'm really dumb. Puzzle games are a little bit of little bit of a mess for me. But I would like to try this out because I like the idea of the optical illusion style puzzles. As for the streams this week on twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex, tonight, Tuesday, I was originally going to play Night Call, but I think I'm going to push that to Thursday because it's a little bit longer of a game than I was anticipating. So I'm going to experiment with something, a mystery experiment that I want to try out. And then I'll probably just play some Halo for a little bit. And then Wednesday, Grab Bag returns to its normal time and normal slot with episodes 3 and 4. We're off to a great start on that show so far, or that season so far. Thursday is looking like it's going to be Night Call. And then Friday is question mark. It's going to be either a mystery game or no stream, one of the two. It depends on how the setup goes on Tuesday and the test goes. We'll see if that works on Friday. Saturday and Sunday are going to be Mariners baseball. That'll be back on the channel. And then we're going to be starting Halo Combat Evolved on Saturday and finishing that up on Sunday. We'll play 5 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday, 5 levels that is. And this is going to kick off our Halo look back. Halo is a game series that really fascinates me, not only from like a story perspective because I like sci-fi stuff like that, but where it fascinates me more is actually from the gameplay elements that it has, where it's kind of inconsistent and each of the games has like a weird quirk that isn't necessarily in any of the other games. And it's a super weird series that I really enjoy and really love, and I have never really gotten super into the campaigns, but I figured this would be as good a time as any to do it because Halo Infinite is supposed to be releasing this fall on the Xbox Series X. Obviously, I'm very excited about it. Today, the day of this recording, July 6th, they announced that July 23rd is going to be the Xbox, first-party showcase for the next-gen stuff, which means Halo Infinite news, which means I'm super hyped for. So, it's a good time. It's a good time. My words are just trying to come out of me. So that just makes it a really great time to jump in to Halo. We'll be playing some multiplayer on Tuesday. We'll be playing some campaign on Saturday and Sunday. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, head on over to twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex. The link is in the description. And hit that follow button so you know when I go live. And if you want, you're welcome to subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Week in Review. If you like the content, you can scroll on down and hit that subscribe button and then ring the bell so you're notified when I post new videos and make flubs and my outros that I do every single week and still can't remember the order of. If you want, you can scroll on down a little bit further and you can leave me a comment down below. You can tell me what you thought of Detroit Become Human or the apple pie Kit Kats. I keep wanting to say apple cinnamon, but it's not. It's apple pie. Head on over to twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex to catch all the live streams over there. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday, maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And be sure to check back right here every Tuesday for more Week in Review. We'll see you next week.